The Pixel 8 Pro is one of the best Android smartphones out right now, but guess what? So is the OnePlus 12. So which of these two flagship devices should you spend your money on? Let's talk about that. Hey guys, I'm Ryan Thomas, and for the longest time, OnePlus was making flagship killers, whilst Google was building phones considered to be the competition for the likes of the Galaxy S series and the iPhones, with price tags to match. Fast forward to 2024 and OnePlus is making smartphones easily able to compete with the big dogs from a quality standpoint. The 12 is by no means a flagship killer anymore, and its price is very similar to the top shelf Pixel 8 Pro. Both of these phones have come down in price on various online stores, but both hover between $700 and $800 for their respective base models, though it is worth noting that with the OnePlus, your base model is double the storage of the base model of the Pixel 8 Pro. As I'm sure you all know, another big internal difference between these two phones is the processor running the show. Google's Tensor G3 was a considerable improvement over its predecessor, but the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 found in the OnePlus 12 is another level, and what this translates to in the real world is the latter just feels snappier, smoother, and more like a flagship. This is most noticeable in games where you'll find the OnePlus to just hold on to the higher frame rates better, and for longer thanks to the improved vapor chamber cooling. But darting between apps in and around the OS, there are just more stutters with the Pixel than its competitor. Sure, the stutters are fairly minimal in my experience, but they are there, and so if you are a power user and you want to get the most out of the higher refresh rate displays, you'll want to go OnePlus, which given both phone makers' track records should really come as no surprise. I mentioned displays there, and this is where things get a little bit muddy, because while the OnePlus 12 offers the technically better display, the bigger, slightly sharper, slightly brighter panel, there is one thing that actually makes the Pixel 8 Pro's panel a little nicer to use in the real world, and that's the flat screen, which some may love and some may hate, so it's really a personal preference thing. But I will say this, I have had some annoying phantom touches on the OnePlus 12 that I haven't had on other curved screen phones like the older Samsungs. So it's probably an undercooked touch rejection system in the software going on here, which means it could be fixed in software. But over the few updates I've had on my phone, it really hasn't changed all that much. So it is something to take note of. The pure panel quality of the OnePlus 12 is better, but the implementation I feel is done better with the Pixel. So it's going to really come down to what you value as a consumer. If you don't mind the curved sides, the OnePlus 12 screen is fantastic. But you should be glad to hear that things in the battery department are far more cut and dry. While the Pixel's 5050 mAh battery, 30 watt wired and 23 watt wireless charging are all pretty good, the OnePlus's 5400 mAh battery, 100 watt wired and 50 watt wireless charging, just another league of speed. What all these numbers really translate to is a 2-day battery on the OnePlus versus a comfortable 1 day on the Pixel. And way faster charging on the former too, thanks in no small part to the included fast charger. The wattage this charger is capable of varies by region, but in the UK it's 100 watts and in the US it's 80 watts. For reference, this is at least double, if not triple, what the Pixel is capable of, and you won't get that brick in the box with the Pixel. So it's up to you to go out and buy one separately. These things can cost quite a bit of money as well. This is one of the key areas where the OnePlus is definitely ahead of the Pixel. But we've seen flagship killers outpace flagships in performance, battery life and charging before. What really separates the men from the boys is camera performance, and in particular the processing going on behind the scenes. Flagship killers of old would fall flat here. Sure, they would have good camera hardware, some good sensors and good lenses, but the processing would just be awful. I wouldn't be so sure this time around. Both phones feature big, high-resolution main and ultra-wide cameras, with the main difference really being that the Pixel 8 Pro sports a 5x optical periscope zoom, and the OnePlus makes do with a 3x optical periscope zoom, albeit with a beefier sensor behind it to do some hybrid zooming. You'll probably be surprised to hear that when it comes to stills, these two phones really do trade blows in all kinds of conditions with their main and ultra-wide cameras, and I think a big part of this is due to the OnePlus Hasselblad partnership, where the colour science really holds up compared to the Pixel's renowned processing. Sometimes the Pixel looks nicer in a shot, and sometimes the OnePlus takes the nicer shot. I still think the Pixel 8 Pro is the more reliable one-click device when it comes to motion and moving subjects, but outside of those scenarios, the OnePlus is really right up there with it. And actually, if we zoom in and switch to the telephoto performance where you'd expect the Pixel's longer lens to prove victorious, this just straight up isn't the case. On almost all occasions, the OnePlus's more hybrid focus setup, let's say, takes the sharper, cleaner and more detailed images when zooming in. And that's potentially down to a sharper set of elements and a stronger sensor behind all of those as well. But it could also be the processing. I find that in computational photography modes like night sight, portrait mode and that kind of thing, the Pixel does edge ahead of the OnePlus, which probably comes as no surprise. And actually, in video, the Pixel 8 Pro does a phenomenal job against any phone, let alone the OnePlus 12. Its video boost for adding artificial dynamic range is certainly more useful than the 8K recording option you'll find on the OnePlus, but honestly, I'd ignore both and just leave them in their standard Ultra HD 4K 30 or 60p modes for the best overall image, because it looks the most natural, it comes out the best. And when it comes to augmenting your shots after the fact, Google of course has its Magic AI tools, where OnePlus doesn't really have anything by default. While you'll get Audio Eraser for cutting out background noise, fantastic transcription capabilities for speech to text, Magic Editor for changing the backgrounds and skies in your photos, and of course Magic Eraser for removing and moving objects in the frame with the Pixel 8 Pro, OnePlus doesn't really have any first-party tools for these things, instead having to make do with the Google Photos app for Magic Editor, where you are capped at 10 saves per month unless you opt to purchase the 2TB Google One Premium plan, which, yeah. And speaking of software on the whole, both phones are running Android 14 currently, with Android 15 just around the corner for the Pixel, which is due another 6 years of platform upgrades and security patches, taking it into the next decade. On the other side, the OnePlus has 3.5 years of software updates and patches left, making it on paper seem a complete blowout, but whether this stuff actually matters to you is going to come down to just how long you hold on to your phone for. For a little bit of context and reference, it wasn't much more than 3.5 years ago that the Pixel 5 launched, and 6 years ago, the Pixel 2 XL was the best Google phone you could buy. However, as someone who loves a second-hand deal, I'm a big fan of these long software support windows, as it means you can pick up a Pixel at half price in a couple of years and still get several years of updates, which is just fantastic. But if you buy your phones brand new or within a year of them coming out and then trade a couple of years down the line, you can't go wrong with either device, to be quite honest. But this is one of the few areas where OnePlus isn't competing at the top, software support, because otherwise the 12 is no longer a flagship killer and gives you that perspective of what Google really needs to do if it wants its devices to be considered the best Android smartphones. The super strong charging, battery life that just goes for days at a time, performance, camera stuff, all that of the OnePlus 12 makes it my pick of these two in particular, but actually Android smartphones as a whole. Make no mistake, the Pixel 8 Pro is still the best Pixel Google has ever made. It's a very, very strong Android smartphone. Its AI features, design and flat display all make it a terrific device, but until Google's internal hardware can really compete with the likes of OnePlus, it'll always have that little asterisk next to it in the great Android smartphone debate. Let me know what you think of this head-to-head in the comments, guys. Are you Team OnePlus or Team Pixel? And while you're down there, be sure to hit like if you enjoyed today's content and subscribe to never miss another upload. I've been Ryan Thomas, and I'll catch you later. Cheers.